is change our attitude about these people, stop marginalizing them and discriminating against them. I don't think we're going to be able to put this issue behind us. If the TPP passes, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that, the Pacific Trade Pact, we're going to be hemorrhaging jobs into third world countries because corporations are going to be shipping the jobs over to these people who are having to change their environmental laws and their protection of the people and so forth. We're going to be hemorrhaging jobs here. There's going to be a lot more people homeless than we have right now. So we need to figure out a way to deal with this. And I'm talking about something like a vagabond village, a KOA with campsites where we can actually have a decent place for people. A lot of these people have money. They just don't have enough money to, say, rent a house or live a normal life yet. They're not back on their feet. So you charge a small rate on a sliding scale and people come in. This is self-policed, self-health care, self-cleanup. If you're doing drugs, you get banned permanently. And it's a respectable place. It's a vagabond village. Okay, they just got $400,000 donated. An attorney, Mary Brockhurst, is dealing with this. And it's my understanding that through HUD, they're essentially giving away houses for $1. You can get a house if you're a nonprofit organization. You may have to pay some back taxes, you may have to pay a little insurance, but I'm talking about homeless hotel, where you're not having to live in a camp. You actually have a place where you live. And you go in here, and on a sliding scale, it might be $3 a night, it might be $10 a night, and you have respectability. And so to get them back on their feet, I'm talking about a community construction corps, like the Civil Corps of Engineers that we had in days gone by, that we are all so proud to see the work of on the coast and the Columbia Gorge. It's what makes Oregon a beautiful place. I'm talking about doing that again, potentially mining the silt behind the dams, building some brick factories, and start beautifying our pathways to the mountains with beautiful rock work. Something to put these people to work. Cut blackberries off of the freeway. Minimum wage, put these people to work on a sliding scale. Do something to get them back on the feet. And start working at this instead of just saying it's a problem we can't deal with.
Thank you. On any given night in Lane County, there's approximately 1,700 to 1,800 people that are homeless, according to our human services specialist, Brooke Wolf. And those folks have many different issues that they deal with. It's not just one issue, it's not just a job, it's not just mental health, it's not the fact that they don't have the resources to get into homes. There's multiple reasons why these folks can't function or can't get into sustainable housing. As a commissioner nearly 8 years ago, I partnered up with then Mayor Lycan and Mayor Piercy, and we went to a convention or a conference on putting together a plan to end chronic homelessness, to focus on the most vulnerable people in our community. One of the things that we came back was we were committed to putting on Project Homeless Connect. That's one of the greatest things that we were able to do for nearly 3 years when we had the resources, was actually connect people to resources that exist that they didn't know anything about. We do have a lot of resources out there. The other item that I was proud to work with is that through our budget process, looking for ways to hold some of our services whole. When community sharing was facing a cut from our Human Services Commission because the city of Eugene and some of our partners had to reduce their budgets. I worked hard through our budget process and was able to find the resources to add back funds to help community sharing, which provides rental assistance and necessary food for our folks. In fact, about a month ago, I'm working on a project in Cottage Grove, Helena Park. I happened to be there in a day when a gentleman stopped by and he said hi to me, and he was a homeless person. In fact, he was a homeless vet living out there in the blackberries next to the park. And I got to talking to him and found out that he was qualified through the Veterans facility to receive medical care. So I immediately connected him with our veteran staff, and today he actually has funding to provide himself lodging. So That's what we do, is we try to help people in need and connect them to the services that are there and find ways to address the services, and it's not an easy solution.
Thank you. Faye stole some of my thunder because I think that's some of the work we've done over the last several years together, particularly when he was concerned about Cottage Grove Community Share. I was concerned about Sciusla Outreach Services in Florence was facing the same disproportionate cut. The rural providers were getting a larger share of the cut than the urban ones were. And Faye worked very diligently to find some money, restore that back into the budget so they weren't getting a disproportionate cut. Sciusla Outreach Services does domestic violence work and at-risk families in the Florence area, also provides rental assistance and emergency housing. So one of the things about homelessness we have to remember is it's far more costly to rehouse somebody who is homeless than to prevent the person from becoming homeless in the first place. And one of my experiences as an engineer is working at UF for the last 13 years before I became a commissioner. One of the primary indicators somebody is going to become homeless is when they have their electricity shut off. It's the last bill people stop paying before they lose their house. Having our utilities work with our social services folks to trade off information about cutoff notices and try and connect, have their cutoff service people bringing the forms and stuff out to them to connect them with the services and try and prevent them from losing housing is a far more effective tool than trying to rehouse people. And that's where I would try and concentrate my efforts. But there are other things we can do and things that we've done and taken leadership on. One of the things I did was work with Commissioner Handy's budget appointee, Rose Wielde, in my first budget cycle to restore $30,000 in funding to the Egan Warming Centers for the next year so they could stay open. And in fact, more recently, I led the effort of each of the commissioners to donate $1,000 of our office funds to the Egan Warming Centers this winter when they had to stay open so many days in a row. It goes on and on past that. Worked with Representative Hoyle on the new state mental hospital. There is a dual diagnosis issue out there in the homeless population. They have to deal with both their physical health and their mental health, and we need to work on that together. It's a problem that is complicated, but working together, I think we can solve it. Thank you.
For question number 3, we'll start with candidate Schoolcraft, following by Mr. Matthews, and ending with Mr. Stewart. Question number 3 is, do you support the DeFazio timber plan to create jobs or the widened timber plan to decrease logging? Which one and why? Once again, that was, do you support the DeFazio timber plan to create jobs or the widened timber plan to decrease logging? Which one and why?
Yes, I support them both. They're doing a fine job. Seriously. Let me try and manufacture 3 minutes here. I haven't actually been following what they're doing because they are doing a fine job, and I respect the amount of work that they're putting into these issues. But personally, I think we need to start de-emphasizing the destruction of our forests and the burning of our forests with greenhouse gases and what inundating the planet right now. I have other ideas that we can raise money by. Instead of cutting all these trees down, we're running out of old growth. I'd like to see a banning of raw logs to ship out of the county. No more raw logs shipped out of the county. Open up our own mills, put our own people back to work. I'm not sure whether Mr. DeFazio or Mr. Wyden has any of these on the table, but it's my understanding that they're just trying to work out ways to cut more trees, to raise more revenue, and then the government is taking the money. I think that we should keep the money that we mill our logs with and dole out the money back to the federal government that they get and keep ours first. Our $100 million a year that we're not getting for our transportation, which is down from 100 and some million a year to 17 million a year out of our transportation division. There's other ways that we can raise money. We're talking about wind power. We're talking about water power, put artesian bottling facility that's publicly owned and privately run at the headwaters of the McKenzie and the Willamette, because we just got bottled water from Nestle, and they're stealing artesian water from everywhere around the world in the United States. And before they get in here, we need to make that money ourselves. We can put a water induction at the mouth of our rivers that's dirty water before we have to pay the ungodly desalination cost, and have the federal government in California and Arizona and Nevada build an infrastructure to bring pipes up and start shipping clean water down to these arid states that are drying up and blowing away. We've got $5 million a day we could make if we only sold it at 5 cents a gallon. And if we bring the other rivers in, we could be making $25 million a day, and now we can de-emphasize the timber cutting. And if that's part of their plan, then I really like what they're saying.
I appreciate that we have a timber policy question in this forum. And in most statistical periods, Lane County, Oregon is the largest saw log producing county and the largest saw log producing state in the United States. We have a proud history of a robust timber economy, as well as a tragic history of the destruction of our watersheds and the near loss of our incredible wealth of wild salmon. That duality is what we need to understand and embrace to move forward positively in this century. I honor the intentions of Congressman DeFazio and Senator Wyden in trying to resolve controversies around the timber issue. However, their numbers don't work. Their goal is, using slightly different mechanisms, is to solve various problems, and the description of the problems kind of shift around from day to day or from speech to speech, to solve economic problems either in jobs or county funding or whatever, by doubling the harvest from BLM land. Now, BLM land is part of the ONC, the lands in question are part of the ONC checkerboard. When you look in Google Maps, you can do this at home, go to Eugene, Oregon, good place, the county seat, zoom out, move around the countryside, and look at the forest lands. What you see is brown squares and green squares. It's a checkerboard. What are the brown squares? The brown squares represent the 600,000 acres in Lane County of private industrial timberland, which has been harvested at an accelerated rate, especially accelerated since the hostile takeover of Willamette Industries by Weyerhaeuser, a profitable out-of-state corporation who's liquidating the private forests. Now, what economic benefit do we see from that? As I alluded to earlier, from 2009 to 2012, total board feet of harvest in Lane County went up by 75%. Wood products employment in Lane County went down 14%. We cannot log our way to rural prosperity. We have to actually do the real work of building a balanced, synergistic, mutually supportive rural economy involving everybody. Thank you.
Representative DeFazio's bill is horrible. It's going to be vetoed anyway. Senator Wyden's bill is just about as horrible. It doubles the timber cut. It allows for trading off parcels like Old Road to a timber industry, and they give back a clear cut. Also, environmental impact. They show what's going to be sold. You can put your complaints in, look at your impact, and then that's it for 10 years. You're not supposed to have any more input for 10 years. So there's some really, really bad parts to that. Also, what they don't seem to understand is ONC lands, BLM lands, federal forest lands, state lands, are taxpayers' lands. So every single person who's working owns part of that land. And it's not just to give away for a great deal to the timber industry. For one thing, they